Hi, Mark here. Trust you're well. This is a legacy recording of a live Lightroom support community which I hosted back in September 2022. We started the journey of exploring the develop module. So some parts of this recording may be out of date. Most Monday evenings I host live on Zoom a 2-hour support community. First hour being skills-based training, and the second hour is opened up to your support questions. I've got a problem with this, how can I do that? And that's any module in Classic or Lightroom, and that's Lightroom Web, Desktop and Mobile. So if you'd like to know more about our live Lightroom support community, just visit lightroommark.com. If you like the video, please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, ask a question in the comments. So without any further ado, let's jump across to the recording, and happy photography. Right, hello guys, lovely to see you. I hope you had a nice holiday, and we're back to Lightroom until last week in October, which is half term. So between now and Christmas, we're going to look at the develop module. We've spent a lot of time looking at the library module over the year, and Lightroom, and a bit of the book module, slideshow, and print and web. We didn't do the map, did we? But we're going to look at the develop module. So bit of housekeeping first. For those that want to receive the files, this is the Adobe Creative Cloud app, which is the little cloud icon which is in the taskbar at the top, or you might have it in your programs at the bottom. If you go to the little bell, it comes up, says I've sent you an invite, just accept it. And then what will happen is if you go to Explorer, Finder, and go to your Creative Cloud folder, and I think you'll see a folder called Lightroom Mondays. And in here each week, I'll put in here a file, a raw file, so you can go along with the actions that we're going to do tonight and practice them and so on. You'll only get a read permission, so what you'll have to do is highlight the file, either go right copy or command C copy, and then paste it somewhere on your computer so you have it local. So what I found in the past was people would move it and they'd actually move it and nobody else could access to it. So because they've taken it out of there. So there's some handouts in the heads this week. This is a public document here. It's Lightroom Queen. Some of you will already know who this is, Victoria Bampton. This is a free PDF that is public, so I haven't been a naughty boy or anything. You can sign up for her email and then you'll get access to this. These are all the shortcut keyboards, okay, for the whole Lightroom Classic. And you can go through each module, and you can see library module, so Z, and Y and B's add to a quick collection and things like that and so on. So it's a PDF printout. It's really handy to have. So I've put that in the shared folder. Okay. There is another way that you can see the shortcuts for the particular module that you're on. If you go to help, and if you come down, right down the bottom, it's got Lightroom module shortcuts, which is command or control /, and it brings up the splash panel, and there they are. And this is appropriate for the module you're in. Okay, so it says library shortcuts because I'm in the library module. And if you click on the actual splash panel, it disappears. So I'm going to press the letter D for develop module. So if I do exactly the same, help, develop shortcuts, these are the develop shortcuts. Some of them are repetitive. So P, X, U, which is pick, reject, and unpick or unflag. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, they're star ratings. Then you have 6, 7, 8, and 9. They're color labels. They're all generic across the board. B puts it into your target collection. So those are across the board, but you'll find there are particular ones only for the develop module. Okay. So I'm in what they call the loop view, which is the whole image. When you see the image in the develop module, you're actually seeing the photograph. If I press G and go to library module, this is a preview. Okay, the loop image, which is the whole image in library module, full image, that's a preview. Okay, so Lightroom has on import has generated this preview. If I press D for develop, when I see it in the loop view like that, that is actually the raw file that you're seeing, anything without any edits. This is a JPEG file, just for quick demonstration. So that's why you're not seeing any different changes. You only see the actual file when you're in the develop module. So here's some little handy short keyboard shortcuts. The tab button, which is third one down, top left-hand corner, which is an arrow pointing in. It controls the two side panels. And we're going to go through the panels tonight, the left panel and the right panel. Okay, press it again, it takes it away. Okay. Now, if you press Shift, which is the second bottom left, it's the arrow up, tab, it does all 4 panels. So you have a panel at the top, you have your film strip at the bottom, and you have your panels either side. So by pressing Shift and Tab, it gets rid of all 4. By pressing Tab, it just does the sides. You will get into a workflow that you like your screen in a particular real estate. Okay, I don't use the film strip that much. I only use the film strip in like the book module or the slideshow module. Most of the time that'll disappear. But if I come down the bottom, right at 6 o'clock down the bottom, underneath the image, you see there's a little triangle there.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I click on the little triangle, it just disappears. So I'm doing that manually. So if I click at the top, right at 12 o'clock, there's a little grey triangle in the middle of the screen. If I click there, that goes away as a single action. But if you want to use keyboards, pressing Tab gets rid of them, or Shift Tab gets rid of them quite quickly. Okay. Again, same with the library module. If you come over to each of the tabs and independently, each panel, you can control independently in each module. So the develop module, you can have set differently to the library module, and same with the rest of them. So this panel here on the left, if I go right click, I can auto hide, and auto hide and show, or manual. So what that means is if I want this panel here, I have to click on the little triangle to hide and show it. I go right click, auto hide. When I pull my mouse off it, it disappears. When I go back over it, it's on auto hide at the moment. I've got to click. If I go auto hide and show, I come away. I'm moving my mouse backwards and forwards. Okay. So I'm sliding my mouse over. It shows. Take it away. It goes back. It's a personal choice. And you can independently, I can go to the right side. So I'm at 3 o'clock now. I click, right click, auto hide and show. I come away. My mouse is in the middle. I go over the panel. It shows. Come off the panel. It disappears. It's a personal choice. Right click. I had mine on manual because I use my tab key, or I will hit the little triangle. Okay. And I have them all set up as manual. I like my real estate to be in my control. So when I come over to this corner here, let's say right in the corner of the image is something I want to cut out, clone out. The panel doesn't drop out to me or expands out to me over what I'm doing, which I find frustrating. Okay. So everything you can customize how you want to customize your viewing experience. Any question about that?
Nope.
No? Okay. So you'll find a habit, you'll you'll just like it a particular way, and a lot of it is down to the size of your screen as well. So I'm sitting at a desktop with a 40-inch 4K monitor. So I've got this lovely big real estate to play with that I can keep these panels open. On a laptop, I will have in the develop module this panel, normally the left-hand panel, normally closed because I'm only on a 16-inch monitor laptop. Okay, so, and I want to see the screen in the biggest format I can. All right. So let's put that back onto manual. Let's have a look at the left-hand panel. And let's work down, left to right. So the top drop down is a navigation window. Oh, before we go there you will find in particular parts of the screen, there are what I call sweet spots. Okay. When you move, when you've got a whole long list of things in the library module and where you want to get to is off the end of the list. If you just gently move your cursor down to the end, you'll find, as you can see, like with where it says collection about 3 o'clock on 9 o'clock on the screen, you'll see there's a sweet spot and it highlights it. And it's only a small little area where you'll find in different parts of the screen. So I'm going to move the cursor between the left-hand panel and the image, and you'll find there's a tiny little bit. Can you see the cursor moving? Right, it's gone to a line into that is so I can make that panel bigger and wider. But it's it's literally, I'm moving the mouse no more than 2 or 3 millimeters. That is a tiny area. Okay. And you'll find, depending on the size of the screen, it'll only go up to a size. Okay. All right. So if this panel isn't big enough for you, and the same on the right hand side, so I've come across, I can expand that panel out. Okay, there's a minimum size and a maximum size, and it's a percentage of your real estate, your screen area. Okay, so the first one is navigation. If you go right click on the navigation, whoops, he says by the size of that, why can't I do that? Okay, is it because it's open? Yeah, if you go right click on any of the names, so navigation, preset, snapshot, you can see there's ticks. You can actually hide them. Okay, so if I didn't want snapshots, and we'll talk about snapshots next week, see it's disappeared. All right, so if there's particular things, same with the modules. If I don't use the book module, if I go right click on the word book, I can take, so screen real estate, you're working on a small laptop, that's really important. You can turn off, never use the slideshow, never use the web module, never use the book module. I've just now got a few more inches back of my screen. Okay. So, all right, and same with these on the right hand side on the panel on the right. You can adjust the orders or turn them off, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Okay, so navigation. I don't use this window a lot, but when it's handy, it's in conjunction with something else. So to give you a quick example, fit and fill. Does anyone know the difference?
It's to do with the pixels, isn't it?
One is it fills the screen up left to right, and the other one fills the screen up top to bottom.
All right.
Okay, so if you have a look, I'm going to change that to fill. If you have a look, it's zoomed in a tiny bit on the navigation. It's filled the screen up top to bottom. I change it to fit. Come on. Oops. There we go. Change the fit. It's zoomed out a bit more to get the whole image. So it's zoomed out to the width. Okay, so that's the difference between fit and fill. And then you've got 2 percentages. Now, depending on your screen size, 100%, 200%. So you can immediately just jump in to look at particular images, particular parts of images, okay, just by clicking on these numbers here. And there is a little drop down, and you can change the last one to 300%, and you can move the box around and look at different areas of the screen. Now, what I find is very handy, I have this on just to give you why would you use that. So let's just have a look at the clone stamp tool in the dust sensor spot removal mode. So we've got the spot healing tool here. I'm going to turn that on. I'm going to turn on visible dust. Okay.
Where did you turn on the visible dust?
Down the bottom about 7 o'clock, visible dust. Okay, we will do all this in a few weeks' time. Can you see that down here?
Ah.
Yeah. And there's a slider to make the intensity. Okay. And the sweet spot I find for most images is about 80% to the right. That's 100%. Bring it back about 20% off this slider. Okay. So now what I do, so I don't miss any part of the image, I normally go to 200% and I go page up on my keyboard. Right. So I use my pen. Okay. So I've now just done that spot. And then I go page down, arrow down. Okay. And can you see, if you look at the navigation bar, it hasn't missed anything. Okay. So it automatically scrolls through and doesn't miss any part of the image. Okay. So there's another sense of dust there. Okay. Another one there, another one there. Okay. So this is where the navigation bar is really good. Okay. And then just as workflow, I'm just using arrow up and down. I'm not using page up and down, just arrow up and down on my keyboard. And it doesn't miss any part of the screen. Okay. So I don't miss a sensor spot. And then my workflow is I then go to color and to see, is there anything I want to remove? So there's a piece of rubbish there. I want to move that. Okay. Piece of rubbish there. I want to move that. But I don't miss anything in the screen. Okay. By doing that, by doing 200%, I can do it 100%, but I'm not seeing the whole limit, not seeing as much or zoomed in as much. So I go 200%. Okay. So that's what I use the navigation window for. Okay. So then I go back to fit and so on. So that's one reason you'd use that navigation window. There's another reason. I'm going to come down to presets. Now, I'm going to show you another little trick. If we go right click next to the word preset, you've got this thing here called solo mode. Solo mode stops you. If you see, I've expanded the history. Now I go to snapshot, it closes the history. If I expand presets, that's closed the snapshots. If I go back to collections, that closes the presets. So you only have one of these open at one time in solo mode. You can, as an easy, if you want two of these panels open, you hold the shift key down and it'll keep the second one open. That's great for when you're moving files around or you're working in folders and collections at the same time. So you've got some images in a folder in the library module and you want to make them into a collection and you want to drag them in, you need both panels open. Or you could make something a target collection. So go right click, make a target collection, and then you could then just press B and it would go into the collection that you're working on. Okay. So let's go back to where we were. So let's try and find that image now at the top here. I'm using page up to scroll up to the top. That should be just here somewhere. I could search for it, but I know where it is roughly. Okay, so D to go back to develop. Okay, so we've got presets. Anyone know what presets are?
Adjustments already made for you.
Yeah, you can, and we will look at making our presets later on Okay, not tonight, but later on we will look at making presets. All presets is a memory. Okay, it's a memory of your basic panel, where these sliders are. Okay, that's all it is. Okay, and these presets, these menus will apply. If you look at this line here in the basic panel, right, and as I click on them, you should. Let's choose something that's a bit more dramatic. Let's try that one. Right, can you see they're moving? They're jumping around. Right, you see the black and whites now have jumped around. Click on the next one. The black and white sliders have jumped down, and that's all a preset is, and it gives you a different look and a feel of the image. Okay, so if I go to let's have a look, see if we've got a cinematic. Okay, so let's have a look, see if there's anything in here. No, nothing much. And they apply differently to each image. And if you look at the navigation window, and if I hover over without changing, can you see it snapping slightly? Yeah, so you can see a preview at it. And I think in the version 11.0, I think they now, yes, it now happens in the main screen as well. But these are adjusting different styles, and these are different settings in this panel here. And they're a good starting point. And you can buy presets and you can create your own presets. There's some black and white ones here. Okay. So I quite like that. It's different black and white tone, different black and white, low contrast, flat. And you'll have some already in your infrared, already in sepia, split toning. Okay. So they're a very quick way of getting somewhere, and they'll appear all differently. And all they are different sliders. So if I click here, you can see the black points come down to -20, textures +2, the vibrance and saturations +20, 25. It's put a profile, color profile on the color settings, and that's the image you get. Okay, so that's all what a preset is. There is a new slider in version, what are we, 11.5, are we? Let's have a look. Oops, no, that's the wrong one. Where is it?
Updates.
There it is. 11.5, yes, I was right, 11.5. Okay, so you can now put an amount on there, so you can dilute it or increase it. So if you quite like this, but you wanted to make it stronger, you could increase. So underneath the navigation bar is a slider. This is new in 11.5. And you can increase the amounts of these sliders. Okay. So if you like that style globally, so it's doing it to the whole image. Okay. Right? Rather than just doing one slider, you can actually say, well, actually, I like it, but I want it a bit stronger. And that's new in 11.5, okay? And that's all that is. It's taking the recipe of what colors, what blacks, what whites, what contrast, what vibrance, and it's applying a style, okay? That's what presets are. Snapshot. It's something I don't use a lot. It's very similar to virtual copy, but there is a difference. What it does, it records, it makes a memory, a photocopy, if you want to say, at that particular point in your workflow. So you're recording that particular point. You're freezing that. You can continue on, but you can jump back to that point at any one point. It's recording that. All those adjustments, it records it as a snapshot. So all you do, put a snapshot, it comes up with date and time as standard, press create, and it's now recorded that, all those adjustments for that moment in time. Okay, where a virtual copy gives you a second copy of what you've got. at that moment in time. Okay, so that's a snapshot. History, literally everything that you've done to the image. So you could jump back. And if I make an adjustment here, so if I make that black and white, so you can see where I'm highlighted on the spot removal. So if I now make an adjustment, so if I go V to black and white, everything that was above it has now disappeared. Okay, because I've done a new action in my history. Okay, but if I go back to my snapshot, there it is, and that's why you do a snapshot. So it's like recording that point, and you're now going to continue further on in your workflow. And you might go, oh, no, I don't like that. I've done something wrong. I want to go back. You click on the snapshot, and it takes you back to where you were. Okay, in your workflow. So it's like a memory. Okay, so that's a difference between snapshots, virtual copies. We know, I think most of us know what virtual copies are, but that's what that snapshot uses in conjunction with your history. So if I do things like black and white or the tone curve or all the adjustments I do after, don't like it, I can just click on the snapshot and it takes it back to that point, even if it's disappeared out of my history. Okay. Collections, exactly the same in the library module. And that's that panel. Any questions about it?
Oh.
Sorry, Helen.
No, I said no.
Oh, right. Sorry, it's David. Okay. Thought that was Helen.
No.
Okay, so that's that panel. Straight, in my eyes, particularly straightforward. So you got presets, you got snapshots, so it records a moment in time. You got the history, and you got collection. So most of the time, this will be closed for me. So I will keep that closed. Okay. So I didn't mention before, if you click on, okay, so my background on my screen is this grey color. It's closest to middle grey as I get it. And it doesn't matter really what color there is, personal preferences. I don't want my eye drawn to that color background. I see people have it white. I see people have it black. That's fine. It's your choice. I like grey. But the point I say, middle grey. If you go right click, you can change it to white. See, a lot of people see it like that. Okay. But my eye's drawn to that white because it's quite bright. Light grey, don't like that at all. But I have middle grey, so it's 50% grey. I have the same background in Photoshop and my other apps, and you can set that up quite easily in the other apps. So when I take this photograph to Photoshop, it presents it the same. I haven't got this white background that, oh, hang on, they look different colors. It's presenting it the same. So you just go right click and you can change the background color and change it to black if you want. Okay. But all mine, middle gray, because that's the middle exposure. And I have it across all the images, all my applications, that color. Okay. So let's come down the bottom. And if we click on the little triangle, we've got film strip. And the film strip is just like the grid view, exactly the same in every other module. It's there and you can slide up and down it and so on. You can just slip through all your images, whatever you want to do. Okay. There's a slider down there and you can just slide through rather than clicking on the images. And that's your film strip. Okay. I don't use it that much. Okay. So now we have these buttons down the bottom here. So we're currently in the loop view. We can do compare or reference is the first one. And then the next one is compare. So what we use the compare for is we can have two images out of, let's have a look at two images that are similar. There we go. There's two images here that are similar. Okay. So I have a reference image, which is the image on the left. So this is going to be that image. Oops, that image. Come on. Come on. Deselect that image. And then I have my active image, which is this image. So I've placed each one, it's the wrong way around, but there we go. So back up that one and then go that one. Okay, so this is my reference image on the left. So I've clicked on this icon down the bottom left-hand corner, R and A, reference and active image. This is my reference image. This image on the left will not change. The image on the right is what I'm editing, active image. And it's when I want to edit this image on the right, the same as the image on the left. So I'm comparing the two. Okay, this is my reference image, and I can be looking at color contrast, lots of things I can be looking at. Okay. Let's quit that. That's not so. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So, and then we have before and afters. Okay. So we'll click on this image here, and this is before, this is after, which is your compare. Okay. So, and you can change the orientation, top and bottom, left and right, how you want to do it. Okay. So you want to compare what it looked like before and what it is now. Okay. So you might be doing, you're working on this image or this point, and this is what it looked like before. Okay. This is what this button down here is, the Y and Y, and you can change them round. You can split them. You can change them up and down and so on, etc. So if you had landscape images rather than portrait images, you can put them top and bottom. Okay. All right. So let's get rid of that. Soft proofing is to do with printing, so it takes some contrast and color out of it. And let's turn that off. And that's that. Let's go back to, see, there we go, top, bottom. Yeah, there we go, rotate it round. So now let's go back to loop view. Okay, so we've got the first one is you're editing the image on the right and you're comparing it to the one on the left, and then you've got before and after. Just in the library module, you've got pick and reject flags, you've got color labels, you've got zoom as in a percentage. So rather than using this up here in the navigation, you can have this switched on here and you can zoom in and zoom out. Okay. You can move the image around the screen by just clicking and hold it. You can press the shift button and slide left and right with your mouse. That zooms in. You can use your command button and draw a box, and it will jump in to fill the screen or fill the screen. Okay. Go through that again. So click on it. It'll jump into whatever you've got set up in the navigation. Shift, which is the arrow up, second to the bottom left, slide backwards and left and right, and it zooms in. Command, draw a box, and it fills the screen. Okay. Or you can use the slider to zoom in and out. All right. There is not it. You just pick these up and you will decide what you want, what works for you. Okay. I very rarely use that, which is shift and go left and right. I use that a lot, which is command and draw a box. Okay. Okay. Single click takes you back out. Okay. To fit or fill the screen, whatever you've got it set up for. Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if we look down the bottom right-hand corner of this panel where the image is, where it says previous, see, there's a little grayed out. It's really, really tiny. You won't be able to see it till you hover over it. This is the options you get along the bottom. So ratings, which is stars. You can see now, bottom left-hand corner, the stars have come up. I've turned them on. I don't use stars, so I turn it off. Okay. Navigation. So I'll get 2 left and right buttons and go left, right, right, left. Okay. So I don't do that because you can just use your keyboard. Left, right, right, left on your keys. Okay. So why would I want that here? Remember, there's not one way of doing one thing. It's how you want to do it. Okay. So navigation, slideshow. So you could create a slideshow. Zoom. I've got zoom already on there. Grid overlay. Okay. So you can then turn on your grid. Okay. So I've got squares over it. Okay. Show grid. You can make the grid smaller or bigger by sliding on it. Okay. Auto, never. All right. I don't use that a lot. If I do, I turn it on. If I want to make something straight in the image, I will just turn that on. Soft proofing, that is for when you do printing, the colors and so on. It mutes them slightly. Okay. So that's what's across the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone all right with that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So now we come to the meaty bit. So is the develop panel on the right hand side. Again, you can solo mode, which I have mine on. You can expand all, which expands them all. Okay, and then collapse them all. Okay, exactly the same on every panel, the same. With this panel, you can change the order and you can turn them off. So we've got these little switches, and we can turn them off, previous, before, and we can turn them off by going to the customize. So all I did was I go right click, customize, develop panel, and I can untick what I want or what I don't want. So if I never use the calibration module and I've got a small screen, I can turn it off. I can even move them. The basic is now at the top. So if you've got a particular workflow that you work on, you can put them in the order. Okay. So I always do calibration, I do lens correction, I do transform, so I get the image straight and square. Then I go into the basic panel and I do my spot removal and anything that I want to remove. And then I do a virtual copy, which we will talk about later. Okay, so I will do the first half of this to here. Okay, and then I'll do a virtual copy. This does not reset. This order does not reset until you exit Lightroom and reopen again. Okay. And then you can go back to the manufacturer's default settings. All right. Okay. Yeah. So let's go through these. Oh, we do across the top. So we've got histogram. Everyone knows what histogram is?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bar graph of value of light. And we have little triangles in the corners. Okay. You can change the colors. The little triangle, you press the letter J, and that's your clipping tool. Okay. So that red there is telling me that that is overexposed. Okay. So I can bring the histogram down. All right. Now there's no red. Can you see the white boxes in the top of the histogram? Okay. There's nothing. I move, and now there's my blacks. All I'm doing is I'm clicking on the histogram, and I'm crushing the blacks. You can see a blue now. That's crushed black. You might want a crushed black image for a particular reason, but if I'm clicking on the histogram in the blacks, you can see where it says black. I'm clicking and dragging to the right. Okay, and now I've still got a little bit. I've still got a white. You press J for the keyboard shortcut, and you can still see down by the wheels and down the bottom of the front of the engine. There's a bit of blue. Just see, look, there's the blue. Okay, if I go into my histogram, move it to the right. I'm just clicking and holding and moving it to the right, and I'm bringing back that information. Okay, so I'm clicking here. See, look, I've still got some blue. It's crushed black, but that part of the image is irrelevant, or it might be irrelevant. Okay, who the hell is going to go like that and look in there to say, "Oh, that's blacker than black"? They're not. But this white bit up here, they might. So I'm going to bring down, press J, making sure the boxes are on. It's my clipping, right? And I can bring down the whites in the image. So now I've got a histogram, a technical value of light. That's all a histogram is. It might be a crap picture and it might be crap light, but it's telling you I've got nothing that's blacker than black and nothing that's blown out, whiter than white. Okay. Now I've got all my ingredients of light to develop my image. That's all a histogram is. And a little tip here, there's five stages of histogram. If you put your mouse in the histogram, you got blacks, the first part of the image. Then you got shadows, which is the next part. Midtones, which is exposure. The modern term for midtones is exposure. Now I'm moving my mouse to the right. Then I've got highlights, which is next. And then it goes to whites. So they're the sections of the histogram. Okay. And if you think about it, a bar graph, anyone did maths, 0 is the bottom left-hand corner. 255 is the top or the bottom right-hand corner. So 0 to 255 are your values, and 0 to 100 up the y-axis, so from the bottom to the top. So all of this is a bar graph. Okay, the higher the graph, so you can see on the right here, these are high, is how many pixels of that value do they have? So this is a value of light, and how many are there? That's all a histogram is. This is the value of, so this is a shadow, and there's only probably about 30 of them. Yeah, but this is a highlight, and there's lots of them. There's 100%, okay, of this particular color or white exposure light. Okay, so all a bar graph is. Okay, and that's what your histogram is. The picture might look rubbish. Doesn't matter what the histogram is, but if you don't have the information, you can't edit it. So having a balanced histogram to start with gives you a good point to start with. You're a chef, you've gone to Tesco's to buy your ingredients. You can't make a carrot cake if you've got no carrots. If I haven't got that value of light, I can't manipulate it in Lightroom. I can't edit it in Lightroom, but I could manipulate it in Photoshop. Okay, so these are my ingredients of light. So that's what your histogram is. And if you look underneath, you've got your ISO, your settings. So 70mm was shot at 6.4, and it was shot at 180th, I think it was 180th of a second. Okay, and it's telling me it's an original image. Now that's telling me it's a DNG. You would have a different formats in there for different types of images, like TIFFs and JPEGs and so on. It will give you a different, or it might be a smart preview, might say that in there. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Most of you know this, but a couple of you might not. I for information is a view. It works all the way around in every different module, and I'm pressing the I key. If you look top left hand corner, you can customize this to whatever you want, and it's in the view mode in the library module. So that's the file name, that's the date, time, and the size in pixels, but you can customize this. Press I again. I've still got my file name, and this is an old file format for me. And then I've got the metadata or the EXIF data of the actual file. So 180th of a second, 6.3, 200, 70mm. So if you just want to go, is it pin sharp? Is the shutter speed too slow? Not quite sure. You can just press I and it will tell you what the shutter speed is. Okay, but it's also underneath here. Press I again, it disappears. So you can press it once, twice, 3 times, it disappears. But you get the same information underneath the histogram. Okay? Right. So the next part of is these local or these tools here. So you've got crop, which is R. Okay. And then if you press O, when you're in the crop tool, it changes the overlay. Okay, so you can 4x5, 5x6. So if you're going to crop it, you'd see the area of the image, grid. Okay, so all different overlay modes by pressing O. I'm just cycling through, and that's the normal one. R is your rotation, is your R for rotation, but that's for crop. R is your shortcut. You've got some little handy little tools here. So you've got angle. If I click on the angle tool, I can say, right, I want this line here to be straight. So I've got my ruler and I can just draw it out. So I'm click and then shift and hold my cursor down. And now it's made that straight. But I can do it vertically. So let's just Command Z for undo. Go and get my ruler. And I could, if I wanted to, make this pole straight. So I've done exactly the same. Now that pole straight, but the rest of the image isn't. Command Z to undo. So that's what this is. Great for, let's see if I can find a quick image for doing a landscape. Let's see what we've got. There we go. All right, so I'm going to hit R. Okay, so here's my crop tool. Go to the angle, and I want to make sure that whilst the bridge goes up in the middle, I want the 2 points at the end of the bridge to be straight. So I'm going to click here, come across to the end, and say, right, whilst the bridge I know is curved, I want that to be straight. That's a straight line. Okay, and it straightens up the image. Now you can see with this image, because my clipping's on J, my clipping, you can see the blue, it's black underneath. If I press J again, comes out. These bits of the image are irrelevant. If you look at my histogram on this image, you see the line at the bottom left-hand corner. It climbs up the left-hand wall of the histogram. It's crushed the blacks. So these parts of the image, I don't want you to look at. And your eye won't look at the dark parts of the image. It will look at the bright parts of the image first. So these parts of the image have been crushed for an aesthetic feel to the image. So there are times when, it doesn't matter what the histogram says, you're doing it, so that's what it looks like. So that part of the histogram, if I bring it down a bit more, I'm crushing a bit more. I've clicked in the left-hand side of the histogram, right? And I'm pushing my mouse to the left and I'm making the black as black. If I push it to the right, if I push J, you'll see the blues, right? Now I've made the image a lot brighter. Now, can't go any further. Okay. So they're not so dark there. If you look over in the left-hand side of the building in Paris, it's a lot brighter over here. It's not so dark underneath here. But if I press J, I bring the blacks down. Okay. Now the eye's not being drawn to this part of the image. Okay, in the corner that's blacker underneath the, it's an aesthetic feel, what you want to do. Okay, doesn't matter technically. All right, there's the image. Okay, what I started with, you see that subtle change in those blacks. Just made the sky a bit darker, made underneath the image a bit darker. I'm just pressing backslash. So that's the one next to the return key, before and after. Okay. Where were we? There we go. Okay, so press D to take me back to the develop module. So we've already touched on the clone healing tool. This is to remove artifacts, pieces of rubbish, and so on. So I've just turned on. I can change the size of the brush. Okay, so click on it. Okay, there we go. It's taking that piece of rubbish away. Feather is how much it fades away to the circle. If I increase the brush, you see in the sky, it'll be better. Look in the sky, you see there's two circles, and the distance between the inner circle and the outer circle, that's the feather, so it graduates away. Okay, all right, so I normally have my feather at near 100%. Okay, so 80 something like that, and it graduates away. Then you have opacity, which is every time you go over it, how transparent is it? So you might have to go over it 2 or 3 times. Okay, so you might you're working on a subject round the corner and you just want to tidy it up. So you might want to play with these settings. You might want a really hard brush. but use a low opacity, bring it down. I'm going to click in here. Oops, undo. Press the space bar down and I can move the image around. So now I want to take these bits out. Okay. And I'm using a small hard brush to do that. Okay, just tidying this up. And this is your clone stamp tool. Okay. Oops. All right. Red eye, very rarely used these days, but it automatically just takes the red eye out in a portrait. And then we have the masking tool. I'm not going to go into it tonight, but all the different masking, and these are local adjustments. Okay, exactly what it is. Select subject, select sky, brush, gradient filter, radial filter, so that does a circle, color range. So if you want to affect a particular color, so you want to affect this blue, you want to make it darker, it will just do the blues in that area. And you can do them in conjunction. So you could do a sky selection. So now Lightroom is going to use the artificial intelligence. I'm going to change the mask color to green. Okay, there you go. Lightroom has selected the sky. Okay, there's the sky mask. And now I want to adjust the sky. So perhaps I want to bring the exposure down. Just brought the exposure down. Perhaps I want to bring the exposure, and it'll only adjust the sky. Okay, but perhaps I want to do that with a particular color in the sky. All right, so you can use these in conjunction with, so you can go subtract, add, you can duplicate, you can invert, but we will spend 2 or 3 weeks probably looking at the masks tool. Okay, so we've looked at them in the past. To give you a quick one, radial filter, that's drawing a circle. Okay, so this can be used like a vignette. I'm going to invert it. So by clicking there, so it now does the outside, but now I'm going to put a darker, so it's like putting a vignette on it. Okay, right in the corners. So, and you can now adjust the feather. There's lots of things you can do. You can add a gradient. You can do whatever you want to do. You can change a move where a normal vignette only does the corners. Okay, you might want to turn this. Okay, so it does it slightly like that because of your subject. Okay, so let's bring the exposure down, let's bring the highlights down. You can affect different parts of it. You can affect colors using a gradient filter. Okay. So that is this part of the menu here. We'll fly through these because we'll carry on with these next week. Calibration. It's always a difficult way of, it adjusts a range of colors rather than the color panel down here. What the color panel does, it affects the actual individual color. The calibration affects colors either way, and I'll put a presentation for you. So you might want to say affect the blues and it'll go into the greens. Okay, so it's like a feather, it adjusts. So I'm increasing the saturations of the blue, okay, or decreasing the saturations of the blue. And can you see it's affecting the sand as well as the blues? Okay, all right. And same with the greens, the reds, and so on. But I'll do a whole evening of calibration. Okay. Lens correction. Your camera goes through. Your picture goes through a round piece of glass, and it bends the light. So it crushes it in the middle, and it goes round the outside, and it bends the light to hit this square sensor. You can tell Lightroom and Photoshop and other apps what lens and what what lens and cameras you used. So turn it on. This is taken with a Nikon fisheye, and immediately it's applied the profile of that lens to that image. Okay, so it knows straight lines, so because the lens is curved. but we will look at all that. And a lot of mirrorless cameras will have this burnt into the file. Okay, but you can manually distort things. Okay, so we can stretch. This is pinching it in the middle. Okay, so I'm distorting the image. Okay, defringing. That when you get like a halo around high contrast subjects. So let's say it's a building architecture, and that's dark, and you've got a bright sky. You'll get a halo around it, and you can take this away by using the defringing, and we will look at all of that. Transform, similar to in the crop tool, but you have so much more that you can do with this. So let's see if I can find a picture of a building that's appropriate. Something. Let's try this one. Okay, so we go to transform tool, and let's say this line here, I want to be dead straight. I can hit auto, and it's tried to straighten things up. And let's turn it off. I can hit full, and it's tried to do. No, that's not very good. What I can do is I can go horizontal, vertical, but I can also go guided, and I can get 4 guided lines I can put. So this drain pipe is quite prominent in the image as a straight line, and to me it's tilting at the top left. So I'm going to draw a line down, and I'm telling Lightroom that is straight. And now I'm going to say over here in the corner, and you want to try and put some distance between them. And I'm going to say, I want that line to be straight. And it snaps them all together. Now I can do something horizontal if I wish. I don't think there's anything appropriate in here, but we could take this line here, and you get 4 lines. There we go. Totally distort the image, and I don't like that last one, so I'm just going to undo it. But I prefer that like that. I've made all the verticals now straight by using this transform tool. Okay, you can manually adjust things with the slider, but we'll spend an evening on that. Basic panel, nice, straightforward. Color, white balance, temperature, so I can make it stronger, as in color temperature. Exposure, that's brightness of light, darker. Contrast, that's the difference between brightness and darks. Highlights and shadows, so I can bring my highlights down, open up my highlights. That's this part of the histogram. I'm doing the same thing up here in the histogram. Okay. All right, I'm just sliding the slider. If I see, I'm sliding in the histogram at the top, the right hand side of the histogram, you see it says highlights. Look at the highlight slider, it's sliding, and I'm making that part of the histogram brighter. I come down to the shadows. You look at the shadow in the basic panel, about 3 o'clock on the right hand side. See the shadows word is now highlighted, and now I'm making the shadows darker, or I can open them up, making them brighter. Okay. All right. Black and white point. What you're doing is you're telling Lightroom what is black and what is white, and you can visually set it, or you can press the Option key on a Mac, and the blue is what is black. So you can tell it what black is. Okay, and it's a meaningful black. Sometimes, this is going to be black in here. Okay, doesn't matter. Right, that it's blacker than black. You're not looking at this part of the image. You're looking at all these colors, and then you start your eye going around. This bit doesn't matter. And same with white. So I'm going to hold the Option key down, and I'm going to see what do I want to be white. Okay, you can see what is white. Okay. All right, so you're telling Lightroom what is black and what is white. Double click on the letters and the words like white and black, and whites and black, and it resets them. You can do auto and so on, but it's a visual effect. Okay. Then we've got texture, clarity, dehaze. They're contrasts: light contrast, medium contrast, hard contrast, That's what that is. It gives the picture punch or gives it some dreamy effect. Goes nice and soft and dreamy, goes punchy. Okay. Yeah, and you can see the colours and contrast between the colours, etc. So use them sparingly, and you can use them selectively. So I could go into sky adjustment. I'm going to select the sky. Hopefully I pick the right one. There we go. So there's the sky. And I could say, right, let's bring down the exposure in the sky. Let's take the whites up a bit, make the blacks a bit more. And then I could come to clarity and texture and make them more punchy. Right. And just play with the sliders. Okay. Right, so there we go. And down the bottom is little, that's what it was before. That's what it is now. Okay. So you can do these local adjustments or you can do them global. Okay. So these are global and you can stack them. I could do that again, stack that on there, or I could add a brush and just do the cloud, but we will look at all of that. Tone curve. So this is your bar graph of values of light, your histogram, and we can make particular parts of the image either brighter or darker, and then towards a particular color range. So we can take the pipette here and say, right, this cloud, and we'll bring this down, make it darker. This cloud, I'll just click on it and bring it up or bring it down. Okay? And you are globally affecting particular parts of the image. Okay, that's what the tone curve is. We'll spend 2 weeks on the tone curve. Hue, saturation, luminance, or the color panel. Okay, so we'll click on hue, saturation. Hue is the color, so you're changing the color. Saturation is how strong the color is. Luminance is how bright the color is. Okay, so I could go into hue, click on the pipette. I could use the sliders, click on the pipette, and I could change that color. And it's can you see the colors changing? Right, making it's now green, yellow. Okay, changing the color. All right, double click on it, we'll take it back to what it was. Okay, right, changes the color. Okay, saturation, make the color stronger. Now it's a really vivid yellowy greeny color. Okay, or you can just, rather than using the pipette, you can just use the sliders and it will just do that color across the whole image. Okay, and this is why you might use snapshots, because you'll say, right, this is the point I've got to, snapshot. Now I play with the colors and go, oh my God, I've messed all of that up. Don't like any of that, what I've done. I want to go back to where I was. So you go back to your snapshot. Okay. So that's what hue, saturation, and color is. Color gradients is when you want to put a color tinge on a particular point in your histogram. So you've got midtones. So if you want to make your midtones red, okay, punch out the reds in there, or you might want to make them cooler blue, or make them a bit yellowy, greeny, see midtones. You might want to do the highlights. You might want to make your highlights a bit redder. So now I've got a red in the clouds. So that's my highlights. Might want to make them cooler, put a blue in there. And you can affect the color, the saturation, and the brightness of them. And that's all of them, but you might just want to click on global highlights. It all says at the top. So this is now just affecting the highlights. So something like that. And these are totally optional. And this color gradation wheel now is the same in most, if not all, of Adobe's suite. Okay, so it's the same in Photoshop, it's the same in color of Premiere Pro, it's the same in After Effects, etc. Okay, so you're getting the same interface. Details is for sharpening. So normally go into 200%. So you can click in the square, takes you to here. This is this part of the image here. This is this part of the image, or you can zoom in. So hold the command key down, draw your square, zoom in. That's a bit much. So you use your scrub So scrub is your shift and go in, and you can look. If you look down the bottom of the zoom, bottom left-hand corner, see the word zoom. As I'm going left and right, can you see the number changing?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's 170, so 200%, something like that. So you're sitting there, right, now I can add the sharpening. And sharpening is contrast. It's all it's doing is the edges, it's sharpening, it's making it more crisp. And you can adjust the radius, so how big, diameter, and so on. And then you've got masking. So we hit on the option button, and it now applies a mask to it. Okay, so why would you want to sharpen the sky, the clouds? You don't. You want nice, soft, fluffy clouds normally. Okay, so I'm moving. I'm keeping my finger on the option key, and it goes black and white, and I can see what is white. The white lines are what are being sharpened. The black is not being sharpened. Okay. So noise reduction is usually about half the value of, because every time you make an adjustment, you increase some noise, some digital noise. So normally about half, roughly, is a rough number of what your sharpening is. Okay, and you can do color, take out color noise. So if you've exposed wrong and so on, you'll get noise in colors and so on. So you zoom in, have a look. It's not too bad, this end. And that's your details. And then your last one is your vignette. So post-crop vignette. So you get two different types of vignette. I think it's in the lens. Okay. So we get vignetting here under lens correction. And that is the vignette. So you're going to put you're making the corners black. That is on what you see. Okay. So if I did a crop, I crop that image, okay, so that, and then I did a vignette, okay, can you see it's only doing in the left-hand corner? Yeah, it's not doing in the top right-hand corner or the bottom, it's doing a little bit in the bottom right corner, but it's, right, this vignette only does it on the whole image, okay? I've cropped it, and it's only on the whole image. Okay. So if can you see it's doing the whole image now? Right. And that, as it says, post-crop vignette. So if I now crop the image, now I do a vignette. See, it's doing all the corners where the lens correction vignette only does the corners when you've got the whole image. So it's doing the sensor. It's cropping the sensor is the best way of saying. So what the camera saw. So if you do a crop and you do a vignette here and you've cropped it, you won't get a vignette in the corner. Okay, so that's the difference there. But I very rarely use this vignette now. What I do is I will use a radial filter, and I will draw my own vignette, how I want it to appear. So I want something like that, because this is the photograph. It's not the corners up here. Now I will put a vignette on it. I'll invert it, so it does outside. So now, and I can adjust it, so I can just bring down the highlights of that vignette. Okay. Totally different. Okay, so I've got my own adjustments on that vignette there. Okay. And that is the basics of the interface.